Well, hi, I'm Tom Trust, and it is the 31st of January 2007, and in my various videos explaining what life is like in the UK as part of the European Union, I've tried to keep to things I know to be factual. A lot of people who are opposed to the European Union have to talk to you about the things that they fear will happen, and I've steered clear of that largely. Because I'm not sure it's the best way to persuade people that the EU is an evil thing or a bad thing for the UK to belong to by simply theorising. However, I'm going to introduce a little bit of supposition into this particular video. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Tony Blair, has appointed two senior officials to lead secret negotiations on bringing back the controversial plan to create an EU superstate before he quits as the Prime Minister. The negotiations are expected to begin this week at a behind closed doors meeting in Berlin. Downing Street has so far refused to comment on the terms of reference of the negotiators. It's a decision that's been condemned by the Shadow Europe Minister, Graham Brady. Downing Street has also refused to say whether a new deal would trigger a referendum in the United Kingdom. Mr. Brady, the Shadow Europe Minister, said if the negotiators had been told, as they should have been, that Britain wants no part in any EU constitution, then that would have been one thing. We might then be able to focus on what is needed in the EU, a reduction in over-regulation. Notice that means that the Tories still believe that you can operate within the EU somehow. The fact that the government is not prepared to tell Parliament or the public what they're doing inevitably raises suspicions, he said. The majority of people in Britain think that the process of European integration has already gone far too far. We would like to see powers coming back, not more sovereignty being given away. Mr. Darroch is one of the negotiators that has been appointed by Mr. Blair. Kim Darroch, he's a personal advisor on the EU to Mr. Blair. He also appointed somebody called Nicola Brewer, the Europe Director General at the Foreign Office. They are going to be negotiating, quote, possible ways to take the constitution process forward. These two will meet their counterparts from other countries in the EU in a series of confidential negotiations aimed at breathing new life into the Constitution. Darroch, a well-known enthusiast for the Constitution, he played a key role in drawing up the original document. But now it looks certain, and this is supposition, but it looks certain that Blair will sign up to a deal on the Constitution before he resigns as the British Prime Minister. But he won't have time to get parliamentary approval. Instead, he will hand this problem over to his successor, who's likely to be Gordon Brown. And if Brown agrees to a referendum, he's going to have a hard job to get a yes vote. And if he refuses a referendum, well, the backlash might be quite big. Mr. Blair has long argued that reform of the EU is necessary to cope with enlargement. This constitution that they want will lead to a big increase in the EU's powers. That would lead to a major loss of British sovereignty in things such as immigration, crime, defence, foreign affairs. The Constitution brings into being the EU as a superstate. Both Brussels and Downing Street are wary of calling this new proposed deal a constitution. Why? Well, because they fear the backlash, they fear the association of the word. It's a move that is calculated to try to give the document a new title that will be more digestible to the British public. One senior EU diplomat has been quoted as saying, "We have to look at the functioning of Europe again, but the word constitution is a problem. It may be called an institutional settlement. It will not be called a constitution, but it will do many of the same things." This constitution or institutional settlement simply serves to embed all of the member nations into something that will be an EU superstate and make our Westminster Parliament even less important than it already is, with 70 to 80% of our laws being made in Brussels already. We have to get out of the European Union. The UK has to get out for the best interests of the population, for the benefit of your children and your grandchildren. This country will not be a fit place to live in if it stays in the EU. It will be locked into a huge, unmanageable mass that is governed by an unelected group of individuals, and that has got nothing to do with the history of the way this country's been run. I've rambled on a bit, I've made suppositions. I may be proved wrong, these events may not come about, but you should be writing to your MPs and saying, don't let this happen. You should be writing to Tony Blair saying, you can't do this. Unless, of course, you're quite happy to be governed by an unelected group of commissioners in some far distant Europe. Thank you.